Welcome to our third meeting for the project plan. Thank you for listening today. I hope you are enjoying the material and getting along really well with modules 1, 2, and now starting off with module 3. By the end of this, you are sure to be project managing professionals. So I hope you are also busy on your assessments. Assessment 1 is due this Sunday, the 27th of March. If there are any last minute questions, please send me an email. Very happy to sort you out in any way that I can. I am now no longer able to check through whole drafts as your deadline has expired. But any last minute questions, please shoot me an email and I'm sure to get back to you as soon as possible. Remember as well that it is the long weekend this weekend. So if you can get some work done during the week, that you're not totally loaded with lots of deadlines and work to do on Sunday, that would be great. So module 3 is really about administering the project. It is quite a short little module, so I'm actually not going to harp on too much about it, but just want to give you and highlight the main areas that we need to look at, as it is a very important part of the project, as it's the actual doing part of the project. Each stage is of equal importance, as we need to plan our project, administer it, which is what module 3 is about, make sure we monitor, and at the end of the day, evaluate, so that we learn lessons and we know what to do and what not to do in the future. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. If you could just give me a minute. And just want to highlight to you just some of the main things that we are looking at. And going into my module, there it is. So for administering the project, the main things we're looking at for this module is firstly the project team, and does everybody know what they are responsible for? It's no good just setting up tasks and not assigning the roles to each individual project team member. It's very important that you stay on top of everybody and that everybody is really clear on what their roles and responsibilities are, so that if things don't pan out, we are able to look into what has transpired and are able to try and assist people along the way. So I wanted to share with you firstly what is called the project team capability cycle. I'll get to it now. And there it is. So we see these circles in the air here. So what do we need to do? Firstly, we need to manage the project team. We have to be team leaders. We have to realize that it's all about communication, that people are people and there will always be friction and issues that arise along the way. So we have to try and manage personalities and people as we work through the project and raise the flag when we see that someone is struggling. Assist them with mentoring, try and gain some sort of help along the way, so that at the end of the project, people aren't suddenly saying they had no tools or resources to help manage their issues as they arose. So for monitoring, we need to make sure that we keep on checking with the project plan. In stage 1, we came up with a project plan and we need to check, are we on top of it and are we reaching our milestones as we work through? Risk is something that is inherent in projects, and we have to make sure that we monitor and manage risk. We can never eliminate risk altogether, so we have to make sure we have all the tools necessary to try and minimize the risk and have plan B in place for those that will arise and risk that we are willing to take. We need to report to our stakeholders. Communication is vital. So stakeholders need to be kept in the loop as we're working through a project. Otherwise, they feel that they are totally isolated and are not getting any of the information that is required. So stakeholders need to be managed and reported to along the way. And when we see that quality is varying according to our standards that we have set forward, we have to make sure that we're on top of it, we monitor, and we manage any of that variation. So this is all about administering and monitoring the project. Administering and monitoring actually go hand in hand together, as although they are separate stages, as you are administering a project, you have to keep checking that you're doing the right thing. So too late to wait until evaluation. You have to monitor as you're going along. The next thing I just wanted to highlight is the project team capability building cycle. You can see there's A, P, C, and D. So firstly, we need to check. We need to evaluate our approaches and see what works for which team members. So when the desired approach is found, we then need to act on that and gain commitment from our team. We also need to plan and use the lessons from our previous project work, and then do. So we need to develop, share meaning and approaches and move forward in a circular fashion. So this is all just keeping the project team happy, keeping them on track, and making sure that everybody is aware of what their functionality is in the project. The next thing about keeping the team informed is meetings and communication. We have to have frequent communication, whether it's via email, whether it's by Skype, whatever the case may be. So I just wanted to share with you, and I think I have passed it. Let me just go back 1 second. So I just wanted to share with you, if I can get there. Sorry, we're going to have to backtrack a little bit. There we go. What occurs in a project? So projects have to be formed in a very planned fashion. We need to have an agenda, which isn't depicted here. But once the project is actually taking place, we need to have project minutes that are taken, so that we have some form of record and we have action items and responsibilities that are deemed according to different roles and responsibilities of our team. So this is just an example of minutes. So it talks about the project, the dates, the times, who it's going to. You can see that it's got action items over there, what the responsibility is, and a deadline. Remember, we spoke about SMART goals. And if you don't assign a deadline to it, it is going to be an ongoing, everlasting thing unless you put some sort of time limitation to it. So there's all the agenda items, and it talks about the next meeting. So the last thing that I wanted to mention, and then I will get on to the actual assessment, as that's what's due on Sunday. So the last thing is making sure that we establish our records and that we keep everything in place. So you can see a little table here, and let me get rid of this, then you'll see more clearly. And the table just shows, my computer's having a little freeze on us. The table just shows what our action items are for establishing our records and what our record keeping strategies are. So it's a tabulated format to try and make sure that we're making sure everything is in place and working on track. So for example, we've got correspondence. For some reason, my computer doesn't want to show you, but I'll just talk you through it. So correspondence, we have to have email archives, we need to scan documents, we need to have all financial data in place, what our project outcomes are, we need to have records on time spent, samples, and prototypes. And everything needs to be in place, black and white, so that everybody is sure of what they need to do. So once we've established our records, we need to maintain them. We need to keep track of what's going on. We need to make sure that every decision is documented. So that is module 3. So I wanted to just hop now to the actual assessment. And I've got some things in my way to try to show you. But I'll just do it this way. So now our assessment is due on Sunday, as I mentioned. I'm not going to go through the assessment now. You need to do that in your own time. But please be aware that you are not expected to complete each and every scenario. You are only expected to choose one of the example projects and go with it. So it's all about the PCYC. You may choose either the computer lab project or the marketing PR campaign, which is number 2, or 3, the cafe fundraiser. Do not try and attempt to do all 3. You will see going forward that roles and responsibilities have been provided to you in a graphical way. And the budget is there. You need to merely focus on the budget that is applicable to your project. So either the computer lab, which is at the top of the screen, or the marketing PR campaign, or the cafe expansion. Do not do all 3. All of this needs to be done on the template that has been provided. And this makes your life a whole lot easier. So on this template, I'll show it to you now. You can see that it provides a nice snapshot of your plan. So it's a nice way to get all the things in place that you require for your project. So put your name of your project on top, what the purpose is of your project, what's the outcomes, what are you trying to achieve by taking part in this project, deliverables with time frames. So this is the what, when, how, who part of the project. And remember, please use SMART objectives. So they need to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-framed. If something is not realistic, then it is not going to be accomplished. So it has to be specific deliverables, and it will be applicable to the presented case study and which exact scenario you have chosen. So stakeholders, next to it over here. Stakeholders are any person or organization that has a distinct interest in the outcome of the project. So it could be the public at large. It doesn't necessarily only mean it's the project team. The project team are stakeholders, but it is much broader than just the participants of the project team. Resources. So resources are not only cash resources. We have people, we have equipment, we have facilities. Any resources that will be required need to be documented in this section. If you don't have sufficient space, you just need to create more lines and enter your information. Risks. We've spoken about risks previously. As I mentioned, risks will most certainly occur in every project. Risk is part of life, and certain risks we can avoid altogether, but certain of the risks we have to try and mitigate, try and minimize, and try and control. We might outsource it to a third party, let's say an insurance company, or we might have a plan B in place. So try and think of all the risks that might occur in the project. The more risks you come up with, the better you are in a situation of trying to manage the risk when or if they occur. So interdependencies is what occurs with this project and the rest of the organization, other projects, or other elements in the organization. So is there any correlation with any other aspect? If yes, it needs to be documented here. Success criteria. So this success criteria is linked in with our deliverables and our timeframes. So we need to try and understand what we are trying to achieve. And when we get there, how are we going to know that we are successful? If you have not identified SMART objectives in this area of deliverables here, you most certainly are not going to know when you are successful. So you have to make sure that your deliverables are very well stated. Then scope. Scope is an essential part of the project. If you remember our project management triangle, it sits at the top of the triangle and really dictates all the essence of the project. What is to be accomplished, and equally important, what is not to be accomplished, which is out of scope. So what is in scope needs to be noted down, what is out of scope. Why is it important to talk about what's out of scope? Because when you start veering off and you have scope creep, you need to realize, okay, let's go back to our scope. Let's go back to what we are trying to accomplish. If we are veering off in the wrong direction, we need to have it documented of what's not in the scope of this project. There might be room to build it in later, or perhaps to infuse more resources into the project, but then that is something that has to be very clear at the outset. So things need to be dated and signed by the project sponsor and the manager. So 1.3 is the communication plan. Has to be outlined of what, who, the purpose, what's the frequency, and how you're going to be doing this. So the what is the communication plan? Who is going to be involved? When is it going to occur? So that's the actual date. And the method of communication. Is it going to be via email? Is it going to be via a meeting, a Skype meeting, minutes? How is this going to be around? So roles and responsibilities. So now that we know what we are trying to accomplish, we need to put physical names in of what the project client's name is, the responsibilities, and we need a signature. So please just make up a signature here. You need to run through all the roles and identify each column what is applicable. For resources. So what resources do we require from a financial point of view and a physical point of view, and what will the cost be? Here's our risks. These risks have to be identified. We need to know what the risk is, what's the likelihood of it occurring, how it's going to impact, and how we're going to deal with the risk. That's the treatment options. Are we going to insure ourselves? Are we going to change our venue, for example? What are we going to do to manage the risk occurring? So please don't only be stuck with 3 potential risks. You're more than welcome to add more lines and go forward from there. Budget, our numbers. This is when you have to look at the assessment brief and look at your particular scenario and see what is applicable. What's the income? What's the expense? As we move to the next assignment, there will be some changes that occur, but don't worry about that now. All you need to focus on is the information that has been presented in assessment 1 in terms of figures. So what's the income? What's the expense? Make sure that we add in a contingency of an extra 10%, as all extra expenses always seem to creep in, and it needs to be signed off. 1.8, a work breakdown structure. So last meeting, I showed you an example of a work breakdown structure. It really is a visual map of the main things that need to be accomplished in a project. The first line dictates the main headings of what the major milestones are. And then levels below that is just a drill down on what are the baby steps that will be taking place in order to achieve that main objective. So that's what the levels are. Level 1 are the main things. Level 2 is how it will be divided into small bite-sized pieces. And level 3 is the next level after that. So usually it takes place in a more visual sort of box-like fashion and like a organogram looking structure, but this is the same thing. Think of the main tasks that need to be accomplished and how you're going to go about doing this. Schedule. So this is linked in with our Gantt chart, which I also showed you an example of last time. So this is looking at the work day breakdown structure and actually assigning responsibilities and deadlines to it. So milestones is what occurs throughout the project when you reach a mini accomplishment. It's too much of a big task to only have a milestone at the end of a project. That's when you achieve your overall objective. You have to use monitoring features, which are milestones, that when you get to an end of a stage or completion of a major point in the project, you have a milestone. And that milestone is a checking point to make sure that you're achieving your objectives step by step. Too late, right at the end of the project, you have to have it as a monitoring tool throughout the project. So on your Gantt chart, just given you sort of a structure of a basic Gantt chart, you can amend it to your requirements. So the activity aligns here. You can break it up into weeks or days. What the task is will run vertically down, and so time runs on the horizontal axis and activities run down. So this is how you need to set up your Gantt chart. If it's insufficient space, please go ahead and attach an extra Gantt chart. And then have everything approved, because remember, this is a project plan that has to be signed off by your client. So that brings us to the end of the session. I hope you have gotten much out of it. If you have any questions, please send me an email. That's probably the best method of communication, direct to my email. So it's krothschild, ROTHSCHILD @laureate.net.au, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Have a wonderful Easter, those that it's applicable to, and a long weekend, and I look forward to your work. All the best.